Others will get it. Okay, so let me share my screen and then we'll begin. Okay. So you guys can see, right?
I will do.
Okay. So you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah, very well.
Okay, so let's begin. Today's class will also be short. Saturday will be when we'll go back to Figma again and we'll touch on some advanced things you can do with Figma. So most of what we'll do on Saturday will just be so that you can speed up your work. Okay. 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 So let's dive right in for today. Today we are discussing UI principles, and UI principles are straightforward, I would say. So they actually are. Okay, it's just that people don't use a lot of them in their designs. So UI principles are majorly foundations, okay, or we can call them underlying principles or things, rules or golden ratios that have been put in place, that helps you design user interfaces so that it is efficient and meets, the goal that is intended. Remember, in week one, we said that design is a problem-solving discipline, So we're not just drawing pretty pictures, we are solving problems. So these principles sort of help us achieve those things, okay, which is why we have them. So one thing to note is that these principles or these fundamentals, okay, of UI design, they are actually the same principles and fundamentals that dictate good graphic design, okay. So in most cases, people who know how to do good graphic design easily translate into UI UX because most of these principles are the same. So let's know the reasons for this, the UI principles or UI fundamentals, whichever you might call them. Okay. Remember, we said research has shown that it takes 50 milliseconds to put the user off. Okay. Within 50 milliseconds, if a user is not feeling your design, they are out. Okay. If your design is too complex, users assume that it is hard or it's difficult to use. Sometimes they may just feel, oh, it may not be too hard to use. It might just be they have to invest time to understand that new design. Okay. So which is why we use these principles. These principles sort of help guide you. I think at week 11, this is week 9. Okay. So week 11 or 12, when we touch on design systems like the Google or the material system, we understand this better. That is the problem of, not creating your own widgets. You know, so you use these principles more or less to ensure that the design meets, the need and solves the problem. So let's move on to the first principle. Okay, the first principle is balance. Okay, now balance simply means you arranging your elements and your negative space in your design, such that one element does not overpower the other element, unless it is supposed to do so. Okay. So when your UI is not balanced, when your UI is not perfectly balanced, the individual elements, compete with the whole design. Okay. They call attention to themselves. So if we look at our image here now, the design on the left is not balanced. As a result, most of the elements are all over. Sorry, let me mute to load the. Okay. Okay. So as a result, most of the elements are all over the place. Okay. As a result, each element is sort of fighting for your attention. Okay, because you are trying to know, oh, what is this? What is this? What is this? It's not balanced. Whereas we have the image on the right. Okay. which is perfectly balanced. So as a result, you have this sort of flow that makes it easy for the user to understand. Okay, so we know the top might be a navigation, we know the left-hand side might be the main content area, and then on the right, we might have two aside contents. Maybe one is, an advert box, one is the promotion or something, So this is what balance does for your design. It's a very, very important principle to also master. Okay. So we have the second principle, and the second principle is rhythm. So rhythm is more or less something that occurs between intervals. Okay. Rhythms are more or less things that are predictable. Okay. You have a song that you like. Everyone has a song that you like. Everyone has, particular artist maybe that they like, and these songs have rhythms. Okay, the reason you are able to remember those songs is because of those rhythms. So there might be a beat in the background or something that loops all over and all over again, you know giving you this impression of what to expect, or giving you this way of you knowing what to expect to come from the song. Okay, the same thing can be brought into design. Okay, and rhythm is more or less predictable. Okay, and it's more or less things that have similar sizes, things that have similar shapes, things that have maybe similar lengths. Okay, so if we look at our design here now, on the left we have a screenshot from LinkedIn messaging. Okay. And here we can derive, I think we can even derive up to 4 readings here. Okay. I only derived 3 readings here, but you can derive up to 4 readings. So the first one is the image. Okay. The image, we see the image of whoever sent us the message. And then we have the title of the message. And then we have excerpts of the message underneath the title. Okay. The fourth reading can equally be the date, that it was received. So we have Saturday, we have April 6th, we have March 3rd, So you can translate that into what we see on the right. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is a reading. The user knows what to expect next. So as a result, things are more or less easy for the user to, accomplish with your application, because they are not struggling with getting the information. They already know what it is like. They already know what to expect. Okay. Now, in turn, reading just makes it easy for users to identify what to do, with your application, because it's straightforward. They can just predict. So it's a very, very important principle as well. Then we have the third principle. Third principle is harmony. Okay, harmony is also referred to as unity. Okay, harmony is when visual elements relate to or they complement each other. Okay, so when you have elements, visual elements in your design that relate to each other or have some sort of way of complementing each other, harmony can be achieved. Okay, think of uh, think of harmony as a glue that holds individual visual elements together, in your design to make something meaningful of everything. Okay. So, and in most cases, harmony can be formed from things like rhythm or from things like repetition. Okay. Harmony tends to help us create what we call a purposeful flow. Okay. So if we look at the image here now, okay, on the left, we have more or less text areas or text fields. Okay. And we have first name, we have last name. Okay. We have email, we have phone number. Now, if you pay close attention, the height for each text area or each text box is the same. Okay. That's harmony. The width of all the text boxes are equally the same for email and phone number. And by the time we take into account the entire width of first name and last name, it equals email and phone number. Okay, the spacing between the text areas of first name and last name equals the spacing between the email and the phone number text boxes. That's the vertical spacing. Okay, sorry about that. This is what harmony does for you, as a whole. Harmony tends to make your design, you know, straightforward, simple, and creates a sort of flow that, is more or less seamless. Remember, we said you can get reading from your you can harmony can be achieved through some sort of reading or through some sort of repetition. So if you look at the image on the right now, we more or less have the fields. That is the first name, the last name, you know, being text boxes. So that's the first rhythm. Then we have the text box itself being the second rhythmical element. Okay. So we have a rhythm of 1 2 1 2, and we have repetition in play as well. So this helps you to also achieve some sort of harmony, because harmony can only be gotten from elements that more or less are similar or more or less relate to each other. Okay. So we have the fourth principle. Okay. And the fourth principle is dominance. Okay. And dominance means commanding, it means controlling, it means to prevail over others. Okay. Something that dominates, something that takes control. So you might be wondering why we need dominance in design. You might be wondering why we need something that controls in design. Okay. Now, dominance is more or less what allows us to create what we call a focal point. A focal point is more or less where people would go to at first glance. Okay. It's more or less like an entry point into your design. Okay. So it more or less helps the user to know where to begin in your design. Okay. And then it leads them to the next point, and so on and so on. So dominance sort of creates hierarchy for you, okay, showing what is most significant to what is least significant. Okay. So it's more or less allows you to create levels of importance in your design. So if you look at our image here now, the very first thing that strikes your attention is the picture. Okay, it's the hoodie. That's dominance. Okay, the moment maybe you get to the landing page of this website, you are already seeing that image. Okay, so the image is the focal point. So the image now allows you, or more or less creates this direction or this flow for you in a way that it's now creates a secondary level of dominance, and then a tertiary level of dominance, and so on and so forth. So the next thing that might come to you or that might grab your attention would be, oh, what is the name of the hoodie? So the next thing that stands out on this design is more or less the name, the title. Okay. So this is where we now have, hierarchy. So we have dominance can help you create hierarchy in your text as well. So we have the name of the hoodie. Then the next thing we have is the price. So that way, the name, you now know the price. So dominance also, helps to emphasize or helps to create things like, contrast, things like shades or tints, which is where we have the color as well, which stands out from every other thing. It's dominant, it's red. So it stands out from every other thing on the page. As a result, oh, this is the button I need to click to purchase this item. Okay. So dominance, if done well, creates, very, very lovely, design for you or product for you, because it's more or less a way of you telling the user how to use the product, or more or less, directing them the way you expect them to go, instead of them just being lost, because, you can more or less, dictate the flow of the design. So we have the fifth principle, and the fifth principle is alignment. Okay, so I would say alignment is by far the most important UI principle. Okay, I would say it's by far the most important. Okay, because it's something that it's more or less invisible, but is felt as well. Okay, you don't really see it. Most times designers don't see it when they are designing. Okay, but when you are done, you just realize, oh, something is off. It's very, very off-putting. And alignment is straightforward. It just means to arrange something in a straight line. Okay, or you know to arrange something in a correct relative position. So alignment can be horizontal, it can be vertical, it can even be diagonal, okay, depending on what you are trying to align, okay. So if you look at the image here now, we have proper alignment. We see the text, aligned properly. The edges are of equal spacing, okay. The baseline is equally the same. The title of the email coming in and the subtitle, the name of the person sending the mail and the time are on this even baseline, okay? And then the text touching at the edges, So this is what we call proper alignment, okay? It goes a very, very long way. There's not much to really explain about alignment. It's just to arrange something well, okay, or allow them to touch or to at least meet at certain points, and this helps your design in a very, 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 very wonderful way, and it's very, very important. You know, there's a popular saying: "When in doubt, align everything." Okay, but most beginners don't do this enough, so as a result, things don't work out well. So the next principle is proximity. Okay, so proximity is more or less the distance between visual elements. Okay, so proximity is more or less used to signal relationships between elements. Okay, so if we look at our image here now, or let's even explain proximity more. Proximity is more or less like, think of elements being close together. When elements are close together, they are perceived as more or less one group. Okay, and when elements are far from each other, they are seen as individual elements. Okay, so that spacing from those elements is more or less the proximity we are talking about. The closer they are, the more they are felt as
Yeah.
one. Okay, and the far apart they are, the more they are perceived as individual elements. Okay, so if you look at the image on the left now, definitely they are supposed to be separate items, right? They're supposed to have their images, they're supposed to have their product names, they're supposed to have a title and the likes, and then their buttons. But because of how tightly packed they are together, they are more or less perceived as one element. Okay, whereas on the right, when we have that proximity, that sort of spacing, okay, it more or less helps to create this vivid picture of, oh, okay, this is one item, this is one item, this is also one item. Fine, they might be the same type of item, but they are individual items. Okay, fine, they might all be TVs, but they are different types of TVs, that kind of thing. you know which is what proximity actually does for your design. Is also very important. So it's more or less about having adequate space, okay, between elements that correlate with each other. So we have the seventh principle, which is white space. Okay. Now, Google is a very wonderful example of white space. Okay. White space is more or less also referred to as negative space. Okay. It is the portion or the area of your design that does not include any design elements, nothing at all, not even an illustration or a small, tiny rectangle, nothing. White space is when nothing is included within that area or that portion of your design. Okay, in most cases people term white space as space being effectively empty. Okay, now white space helps your design in a lot. As beginners, I know most times people feel, oh, should this place really be empty? Let me put something here, let me put something here. You don't always have to. Okay, you know, more or less think about what the purpose of the design is, then that will determine whether you need to put something. But in most cases, white space is very, very, very important because it allows your design to breathe. Okay, it allows your design to have this kind of room. So think of white space as you living in a small room with 50 people. Okay, when those 50 people go and it's only you in that room, there's air for you to breathe. Okay, think of your design that way. Don't choke your design too much. Okay, fine, we know all these beautiful elements can come in and, but when the user has to think too much about every single element on your screen, you know, you have lost them. Remember, we said 50 milliseconds is all it takes. I come to Google, I see Google, and then I see the box. Okay, I've gotten all the info I need, to move forward. Okay.
Here are some results from the web.
Sorry. Google does have a boy a lot. Okay, so let's move on. We have consistency. Okay, so consistency is the next principle. And I think when we talked about examples of bad UI and examples of bad UX, we talked about when things are not consistent. Okay, consistency in UI design is more or less concerned with making sure that elements in the user interface are uniform. Okay, everything has to be uniform. Everything has to more or less be the same. You can't maybe use a color of blue as your primary button and then you go to another page and you use another shade of blue as your primary color. You get. So when we get to, I think it should be week next is week 10. So 11 or 12, we'll talk on those design systems which help to speed up your workflow. Okay, and make sure that your designs are more or less uniform. Okay, so consistency, is more or less how everything will look and behave in similar ways. Okay, so consistency more or less helps to prove that a user's assumption about the user interface is right. Okay, because now most users that want to use your product already have an assumption. They already have, once they see one element, they expect that the next will be similar. Okay, so that is why being consistent is important, because it makes your design familiar, it makes your design reliable. Okay, we have the image here. Every other element here is a square, depicting maybe an avatar. Okay, then you come in and you have a circle. That's being inconsistent. As a result, the user is put off and is interpreting that element differently because he or she now feels, oh, if this is a circle, it must be doing something else. Okay, which is why sometimes you tend to see similarities between, posts and adverts in your feeds. It's done on purpose so that, you don't know what it is. So, you look at it, you click on it, and you do all those kinds of things. So it's more or less about being consistent as well. So the ninth principle is aesthetics. So aesthetics refers to the visual attractiveness of a product. Okay, so studies have actually shown that creating good aesthetics in a product leads to better usability and user experience. Okay, aesthetics is just how visually attractive your product is. But remember, don't go overboard. As designers, sometimes you're like, I need to make this thing look extremely beautiful. Whereas your research is showing you that these people don't need beautiful designs, they just need functional designs. Okay. If you are designing for kids or for youth, you would go with something much more playful and you'll be able to express more. If you are designing something professional, you would have to tone it down. So don't make your design too simple that the user can't really do much with it, and don't make your design too complex that the user gets confused. Okay, aesthetics is more or less finding that middle ground where your product is working well, but at the same time it is appealing to the user. Okay, so we have more principles, we have movements, we have framing, we have color typography, which we talked on. Okay, we've already talked on color and typography. These are always separated because they are topics on their own, okay, which we've discussed, okay. And so it's more or less deep diving on how to use them or how to create them. These other ones we just discussed are more or less complementary to color and typography and how you can blend things together. But these are other principles that you can look up. There's movement, that's more or less motion. I think we can touch prototyping in, I think, 11 or 12, week 11 or 12, okay, where we'll touch on prototyping, how we can prototype designs. Okay, that's where movements will come in. Then patterns is more or less about creating similar elements within your design. So it's You know, maybe you have particular sections that loop or repeat themselves. Okay, pattern helps you to make that, so that way the user is familiar with the design. You know, framing is also one of them as well. So we have an assignment, or is it two assignments? Okay. So it's not compulsory to this. This is not even a compulsory assignment for you to submit. Okay, no, I don't even think I'll add you to the classroom. So the assignment is using the principles looked at. Using these principles, look at your sketches, okay, and your wireframes which you have done previously, or your current design. That's if you've already started designing, okay, and try to pinpoint where you might have gone wrong and make adjustments, okay, to accommodate some of these principles. So if you look at your design and you're seeing that, oh, you don't have enough balance, if you're looking at your design and you're saying that, oh, there's no rhythm in your design, remember, you don't need to integrate all these principles, okay? You know, the product you are designing for will determine the kind of principle you are using. Or in fact, the screen you are designing. So if you are on a messaging screen, okay, you may need things like balance and rhythm, okay. You know, if you are designing forms, you will need harmony and unity. You know, so it's not that every single design should integrate all the principles. You know, you can survive with a few of the principles, but it should be related to what you are designing for, okay. Then the other thing is to find designs that exhibit these principles online and you can share with the class. Okay, so you can post in the WhatsApp group, find a design you can post and explain what principle you feel that design is exhibiting. You know, so it's not a compulsory assignment. Okay, it's compulsory at the top where you would look at your design and fix it based on that. You know, but you don't need to give feedback there. Whereas the other one is just general. So you can find designs online, websites, whatever, and share with the class and tell us, what principles you are seeing, in that design. So that does it for today's class. Okay, so if we have any questions, we can ask. Let me just unmute you guys. Okay, so you can ask your questions for today.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in dominance, can't we say that if the brand itself also has is part of that which is controlling? Can we not add the brand itself just like the way I mean based on the design that you use, the Nike design that you use?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I yeah.
Okay.
Like the brand itself shouldn't we can say that it is part of dominance too, yeah.
It depends on the context. Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
okay,
so now, we said dominance is the focal point. Okay.
okay,
Now, most of your UI is driven by visuals. Okay, what people see. Okay, and what they see translates to how they will relate with your product. Okay, so to a large extent, I would say the Nike there is the brand identity, meaning
yeah,
they are familiar with Nike. So
yeah,
it's not really the dominant thing there.
okay,
So
okay,
whereas if I said on a page, there is a Nike boot, there's an Adidas boot, and maybe there's a Puma boot, okay? Then I can justify Nike's dominance based on the fact that maybe Nike is much more popular than Adidas and Puma. You're getting
yeah,
now. Okay. So now, in most cases, those elements would be the visual elements, meaning the shoe, meaning even the type. Okay. There are particular websites you might go to that have bold typography, okay, introducing you to whatever products they are offering. Okay, so they want you to read that typography first. So when you come in, that's the dominant element. Is more or less, oh, read this first. And in most cases, those people that push with type more or less have good content strategies. Okay, so they push with type because they want you to read it and it might be short, it might be concise, and then that typography now directs you to what you would do next. Okay. So most cases, the brand will not be the dominant element. It's the visual elements, that is the UI element, pictures, the colors. Even colors also depicts dominance, funny enough. Okay. So if you have a big red button, okay, you are most likely going to click that big red button than clicking the smaller white button. You're getting, okay? That's dominance, where something is much more powerful than the other. So it's more or less playing with it so that, you can make it in a way that the user goes through a flow, okay? So if the user sees the big button should be something that maybe leads him to create an account or something of that nature. Whereas the smaller button might be to perform smaller actions. Okay, so that's majorly dominance. I hope I explained it.
Powerful, very well.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Yes, do we have any other questions, guys? Okay, seems we don't really have any other questions. Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. Yes, if you have questions. Okay, so it seems we don't have any other questions. So Saturday, I'm busy on Saturday. That's the problem. I don't know when I'll be available online on Saturday. But Saturday, we are supposed to have our second design session. Okay. That's when we'll talk on advanced elements like components, the pen tool and some other, advanced elements. Okay. Maybe I'll update you guys on the group chats, Saturday morning to see how my schedule is like on Saturday morning. And this will be the first class I'm missing if it's not available. Okay. Yeah, you guys should cut me some slack now. We're done 9 weeks without me missing more. Okay, I'll see. I should be available later in the day, so I'll communicate with you guys, to be sure if later in the day people are still up for it. Okay. Yeah. So thanks, guys. Today the video will be up later today, so those who missed will be able to see it as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So guys, have a wonderful evening. Okay.
You too, sir.
Okay. Bye.